Hello YouTube. After doing my last video on some of this subroutines of the presuppositional apologetic, at least as is put forth by Shouldnt, Cant, and Eric Hovind, I started to realize, there's many more subroutines going on here. There's a lot of things that they have to bypass and obfuscate and lead you in the direction that they want you to go. And one of the subroutines I was thinking about is the whole abandonment of the evidential argument. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I think that they abandoned that argument because it's rough. It's a rough haul. It's a tough row to hoe for them. And so they've got to give a lot of reasons for that. And so one of the reasons, as I mentioned in the last video, is that they're not going to put God on trial, which I discussed there. The other thing is that they want to reduce the evidential argument, in their words, to absurdity. And so they do this by giving a few analogies. And of course, an analogy only works if it's analogous to what you're comparing it to. And the first one that they would say, well, there's one that they really use quite a bit, and that's to say that if you said to them, came and said to them, words don't exist, they wouldn't hand you a dictionary to prove to you that words exist, because of course you've just refuted your own statement by utilizing words. Now, of course, this is an old philosophical argument. This is not something they made up on their own. They're just utilizing it for their own convenience. Another one that I heard Sai use, which is the same thing, is that if you came up to him in between breaths of air and said that air doesn't exist, when clearly you had to take a breath of air in order to form that word and make the sounds. And they would say that this is absurd. And I think what's really absurd is to promote this as something analogous to God. I mean, obviously, air is evident, and words are evident, and they're demonstrable. And the fact that they would need to resort to this kind of an argument really demonstrates the fact that God is not evident and is not demonstrable. So, this is a poor argument, and it's a poor analogy because it's not analogous. And another one that I've heard Sai come up with on another video, where he was preparing some of his followers to go to the Reason Rally and preparing them for their presuppositional apologetic to really unleash the hounds. And he goes about this little anecdote, this little story of Bob the Drunk. Now, in the story of Bob the Drunk, which I find quite humorous actually to listen to, because I'm not sure if this is from the deep within the recesses of Sai's mind, or if Bob is his uncle, I'm not sure. Anyway, he says, let's say you're I can't remember if it's a sheriff or just a police officer, but you're a member of the force in a small town, and everybody sort of knows everybody, and you get a call on, I don't know, Friday afternoon or so, Friday evening. Bob the Drunk's at the bar, and he's needs a ride home. He's everybody knows he's the town drunk, and so you go in your squad car and you pick him up and you take him home. And then you take your squad car home, as is customary, I guess, in small towns. Maybe it is in larger towns too, I don't know. And then maybe you go back to the office to do some paperwork, and you stop by the dry cleaners on the way to the office and pick up your freshly pressed uniform. And you go up into the office at work, and you do some of your paperwork, all that small town paperwork, small town police paperwork. And you come out, and the car's gone. Your squad car is gone. And you're thinking to yourself, holy smokes, this isn't good. I'm going to have some answering to do for the fact that this squad car is gone. And but fortunately, you had your pedal bike there, because we all know that police officers in small towns keep their pedal bikes at work. And you start biking home, and on the way home, you hear a siren, and you realize that a police car is coming. And so you pull over, and police car pulls you over, and it's Bob the Drunk. And he's in your squad car, and he's wearing your freshly pressed suit. And he gets out of the car, and he says, you were speeding. And you say to him, well, I happen to know the top speed of this, I don't know if you saw it on Mythbusters or what, the top speed of this bike with a fit athlete is, 45 kilometers an hour or something, and this road is got a 55 kilometer an hour speed limit, so I know I wasn't speeding. And of course, the whole analogy, the idea is that you wouldn't give this guy evidence, right? He's using your car and your perception of authority, your uniform, and that sort of thing to challenge you. He's using your worldview, of course, is the analogy here, and he's saying basically you're the one who's going to have to answer to the government or whatever for the fact that the squad car was stolen, right? When your chief or section chief or regional chief or whatever comes in to do inspections and says, hey, where's your squad car? What are you going to say? I gave Bob the drunk's got it, but I won the debate with him. I gave him evidence, that I was in the right and he was in the wrong. And that's the analogy, is that you shouldn't give evidence because these people, these atheists, have stolen your worldview, and you have to answer to a higher authority. You have to answer to God. And so, rather than give God this weak argument that you gave evidence to them, but they just wouldn't listen, and they, even though they were assuming your worldview in order to demand that evidence and that sort of thing. And of course, again, this is completely not analogous to what's actually happening, because of course, at the very least, Bob the drunk knows that the government exists. He knows that you're answerable, and Bob the drunk is, sure, he's assuming your identity, he's taking your squad car and everything, but that is not analogous to this situation. It's a really silly story. It really doesn't give any credibility to their argument, but really, you kind of got to give it to them. It's cute, but it doesn't hold any water. So, at the risk of stating the obvious, the whole issue that I have with this analogy, of course, is that in the Bob the Drunk story, the government is not something that anybody would question. It's evident. Everybody knows that it exists, and it's demonstrable. And of course, in what it's being compared to, God, is not evident and not demonstrable. And let's not forget, it's not lost. It shouldn't be lost on any of us that, of course, Bob the drunk in this analogy is the atheist, right? So we've got these compromised faculties, according to Psy, right? That we're this messed up, incapable, incompetent that although somehow managed to commandeer your squad car and uniform, or in this case, worldview. Anyway, it's not exactly is not exactly treating us respectfully when he uses that kind of an analogy. That's something that I find very frustrating. Is this whole "you're borrowing from my worldview" tactic? I'm thinking with my brain, right? And you're thinking with your brain, and this whole idea of borrowing from worldviews. I think it's weak, and it's got no place in honest discourse. It's a possessive, and I don't, in the analogy, that's sort of what he's doing, right? The uniform, and to say that you can't account. The whole point, of course, is that you can't account for knowledge, that the atheist can't account for knowledge. So if we make any knowledge claims at all, we're borrowing from their worldview, and it's a crock, because of course their worldview, it's a simple assertion that they're the ones who can account for knowledge. And I'm sorry, but I don't just buy any assertion that's made. At any rate, after doing this, I've done a few little clips here and there, and realizing that this is going to be too long of a video. It takes me hours and hours to upload these darn things. That's why I'm a little frustrated with the last video that I uploaded. It's uploaded I've managed to mess it up twice now, so I'm going to try to re-upload that one maybe tomorrow, and I'll upload this one tonight. And I've got it's going to be a part 2 to this one, because it's all in the same type of subroutine. So stay tuned for part 2 of this video, and thanks for watching. Have a good evening.